Please give a very, very, very big applause and warm welcome to Gopi Kallayil.
Thank you. Thank you, AYUDH, and welcome. I want to start off by asking you, how many organs are there in our body? We use our body all the time. How many organs are there? 12. Okay, what's your name? Kato. Kato said 12. Any other guesses? Just guess. Give me another guess. Give me a guess. 13. 30? 30. Okay, give me one at the back. So 20, 50. And it's amazing. We don't know, right? Because we use our body all the time and we don't know these basic things about our body. So I once asked 3 doctor friends of mine, how many organs are there in the body? And they said, we are not sure either. So I asked my most trusted source, Miss Google, and Miss Google told me there are 78 organs in the human body. By popular consensus, 78 organs. The largest of that being the skin. We don't think of it as an organ. That is the largest organ. So today I'm going to introduce you to the 79th organ in the human body, not created by nature or by God, depending on what your belief systems are, but created entirely by human beings. The 79th organ in the human body is this device here. And I'll tell you why it is like a human organ. Because you touch it, it responds. It's got a skin. It's got ears. It talks to it. It understands you. It's got a voice because it can speak back to you. It's got eyes. You hold it up, it recognizes faces and objects. And it seems to have this enormous intelligence. It increases our brain capacity because you can ask it any question and it seemed to be able to tap into the collective recorded human knowledge that exists somewhere on the internet and bring it back to you. All of a sudden, my brain capacity is expanded because of this. And most importantly, it seems to have a mind, spirit, consciousness. Otherwise, why else would all of you walk around with this 79th organ so close to your heart? Sleep with it next to your bedside. How many of you do that? More than half of you. 90% of you. Amazing. And wherever I go in the world, it must have some kind of a mind, spirit, consciousness, because when I look at you at an airport, in a shopping mall, what do I see you doing? You are walking around with the 79th organ in your hands, lost deeply in prayer. Especially when we play Pokemon Go, right? Exactly. Martha, right? Yeah, from Portugal. Yesterday, she and I were looking. Spain, we were looking for a monster. She said there's one in the lake. We went looking for one. But in all seriousness, the 79th organ, this has become the most pervasive technology in human history. More people have access to one of these than have access to clean drinking water or electricity. This is the first time in human history. In fact, last February, we reached a unique inflection point in human history. There are an estimated 7.1 billion human beings in the world. And last February, we hit an estimated 7.2 billion mobile devices. For the first time in history, we have a piece of technology that exceeds the number of human beings. And that brings us to a unique point in history we've never seen that all of you will grow up with and confront this. It comes with a lot of benefits. And working at Google at Silicon Valley, I've witnessed a lot of the benefits. Sometimes it has unintended consequences that we did not quite anticipate, but it ended up that way. And I'll show you one of those. But most importantly, it is begging that question for all of us as a human race. How do we redefine our relationship with these kind of technologies? How are we going to live with this on an everyday manner? What is going to be our relationship with this? And this is really what I want to talk about in our talk and give you with some working rituals, some things to think about. But first of all, I want to tell you the story of unintended consequences. Can we go up to the slides and advance through the first slide when it comes up? So for this, I'm going to take you to a story that happened about 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I decided to go witness for myself the largest gathering of humanity that takes place every few years. Does anyone know what is the largest gathering of humanity? Yes? Kumbha Mela, yeah. What is your name? Priscilla. Priscilla talked to the Kumbha Mela festival. It happens in India once every 12 years. And the really big Kumbha Mela, the Maha Kumbha Mela, happens once in 12 times 12, once in 144 years. And one of them happened in our lifetime a few years ago, so I went to see it. This festival attracted an estimated 100 million people. 100 million people. Now, in India, when we say millions of people, it is not a figure of speech. It means there were millions of people. Go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is the kind of scene on the banks of the river Ganges, and I was one of them. The day I arrived at the festival, there were 30 million people. That's the size of, a smaller European country on the banks of the meeting point of this river. Now, this festival is also famous for attracting the world's largest gathering of mystics, yogis, Hindu holy men, people who have dedicated their life to contemplation, the inner practice, meditation, etc., part of the practices. That is what they've chosen. They said they want to focus on the inner life. So a lot of people come to just view or meet these yogis and these Hindu holy men who are at this festival. So early one morning, I was walking along the banks of the river, Ganges, when I saw one of these Hindu holy men, and he was a Naga Baba. He was, as the sun was coming up, he was on the side of the river, and as I was watching him, he was not lost deep in meditation. He was not chanting Sanskrit mantras. He was not in a yoga pose. Instead, I'll tell you what he was doing. Can I go to the next slide? He was jabbering away on his cell phone. And I was thinking, what are we doing with these amazing technologies we're building in Silicon Valley, driving to distraction these professional meditators? And early in the morning, if he couldn't get away from his phone and sit quietly in meditation, what hope do we have as a human race? But all jokes apart, I'm also all of you are aware, I'm personally aware of how much benefits these technologies are bringing to humanity as a whole. And I want to tell you one story to illustrate that. And for that, if you go to the next slide, and one more, I want to tell you these stories about the benefits of these technologies. I want to take you to this place. It's a small village called Chittilamcherry. It's a small village in Kerala in southern India, which is where Amma is from. And this village, Chittilamcherry, has got a very special place in my heart because it is my home village. And I was there last December, if you go to the next slide. So this is me walking around the paddy fields. It's a rice farming community of 20,000 people. And those are my grandfather's, those used to be my grandfather's rice paddy fields. So I went there in December, and I was walking around. I went to the local village temple to watch the temple drummers and make friends with the new temple elephant that they have. It was just like a nostalgic trip for me. When I was a kid, my biggest ambition was to be one of those drummers in the temple. Because my uncle and my cousins used to be the temple drummers as well. And I would beg my uncle saying, teach me how to be a drummer. But because I was not living in the village, I never got a chance to actually learn and be a drummer at the temple. When I went there in December, I looked at the village school where my mother studied. And I almost teared up because I would look at these little girls running around the yards, and I knew that many years ago that was my mother. And that school, physically, infrastructure-wise, still looks the same as when she studied there, except one difference. In schools like that, and this story is unfolding all over the world, whether it's in Uganda or in Siberia or in Auckland or in rural Ireland. If you go one more slide, children with access to these kind of technologies and access to the kind of services we're building at Google, Facebook, etc., now have access to the same amount of information as any of you are getting at your schools and universities. They can watch the same TED Talks, even though they cannot afford to go to TED. Not only can they watch these YouTube videos, it's translated automatically into a language that they will understand. They can access the National Geographic lesson plan. They can look at underwater sea life off Galapagos, even though they might live in Nepal and have never seen an ocean. In an era where information is like oxygen, these technologies are leveling the playing field for humanity. No question about it. But it's also putting us at a uniquely challenging situation. And that is, these technologies also end up distracting us endlessly. There's a price we pay. It's constantly seeking our attention. How do we manage all of this becomes the big challenge. What is our relationship with these amazingly beneficial technologies that also demand so much from us? It's relentless, 7 by 24. Messages come. We feel overwhelmed with it. There's so much of it to consume. Everybody wants to talk to us. Everyone has free access to it. We don't even know what to do with the photographs we take on a single day, let alone our lifetime, right? So our attention span is kind of getting scattered, and it's presenting us a really unique challenge. My parents didn't have to deal with a situation like this. All of us are being asked to do it. But in the midst of all of these technologies, still not accessible to every single person, there is another technology that is available to every single human being in the world. All the 7.1 billion people get equal access to it. What is that technology I'm talking about? It is still the most sophisticated, complex technology known to humankind. What is it? I'm sorry? Relationships, yeah, that is true. Yeah, one more level, that's a good one too. Yeah. The brain, exactly. If we go to the next slide. Exactly. Our brain, our body, our breath, our consciousness, right here is one of the most sophisticated, complex technologies known to human beings. And if you're thinking, is that really the case? Let me explain in a minute. So in companies like Google and Facebook, the hot thing these days is artificial intelligence, teaching machines to teach themselves so they can get smarter and smarter. And about 8 weeks ago, we had a major breakthrough in artificial intelligence, and that was a piece of software that we had built at Google taught itself the Chinese game of Go. It's a game with just 3 rules. That's it, 3 rules. And it learned the game of Go. It competed against the world champion Lee Sedol in Korea, a game of 7 games, and it beat Lee Sedol. That was a cause of huge celebration that the software taught itself. The game is so complex you cannot program it, meaning there are so many permutations and combinations between these 3 rules. So the computer had to teach itself, become smart over time, and it beat the world champion. But human beings have learned this game on their own. 6-year-olds in China will sit in the grandparents' lap, learn Go, and become extremely good at it. And the fact that finally we taught a computer how to learn this game was a big breakthrough. So compared to the brain, what these machines can do is still very, very primitive. And if you don't believe me, think of the time if you know of somebody in your family or friend's family who's like, say, a 4-year-old who's learning languages. And no matter where they're living, whether it's in Sweden or Albania or Romania, you uproot that kid and put that kid in Beijing. A year later, effortlessly, it's picked up Mandarin, all the rules of the language. The human brain's ability to comprehend these things, learn, and think of great ideas is unprecedented and makes these kind of technologies pale in comparison. And not only that, this inner technology is the filter through which you will experience all your life. So that is, if you just take one concept away from today's talk, that is the main concept I want you to walk away with. That right here is the most important technology, the most sophisticated technology that each one of us gets to use. Not only that, for the rest of your life, how you show up in life, what you do with your life, whether you become a sports star, a musician, an artist, a computer programmer, or a business leader, or a social worker, is all dependent on how this inner technology performs and what it does. Because it has come from your brain, your breath. So your entire life, your self-expression, whatever you're trying to do, is a function of this technology. And everything you experience in your life is being filtered by this technology. Is this making sense? If not, I mean, that is the pivotal concept I want you to walk away with. Okay? If it doesn't make sense, or if you disagree with me, raise your hand, and I want to make sure that you get this point. 100% agreement? Yes. What is your name? Bob. Yeah, tell me, Bob. Yeah. So the main point I want to make is everything we experience in our life is being filtered, is to go through this technology, your body, your brain, your breath. Meaning, if you eat a piece of food, this technology has to digest that food. If you read something in a book or on a computer, this technology has to make sense out of it. If you hear somebody talking or a piece of music, whether it has an impact on you is how this gets filtered by this technology. So everything that happens around you through sound, light, motion, or things you put into your body is going through this technology and being processed, and depending on how well it's processed, it changes your experience of life. That is the first point. The second point is, in our life, we are all going to go forth and do amazing things. We might do creative things. We might write a book. We might create music. We might work in a company. We might help another person. We might heal. We might become farmers. Whatever we do is an expression of this technology. Okay? It comes through our hands. It comes through our mouth. It comes through what we write. It comes through our brain. So therefore, the quality of our life is going to be determined by the quality of this technology. If this technology in a state of peak performance, if it is functioning well, you experience your life, you're happier, you're more joyful, you create more things, you write better books, you create amazing products. And if this technology is not in a state of peak performance, your life, the quality of your life degrades. Again, I'll tell you experientially how to feel that. Think of the last time you had maybe a flu or a common cold. Okay, a day when this technology was not performing well, or you stayed up very late partying and in the morning you just were not functioning. You hadn't slept enough and you had a bit of too much stuff you consumed that, that just impaired this technology. Think of that time. The same food that you normally enjoy, you just didn't want to touch it. It felt disgusting. Your body couldn't take it. The same friends that you like. Martin is my friend. But on a day like that with a big hangover, I don't want Simona or Martin anywhere. I hate them. Leave me alone. Give me the blanket to put on my head. Or some music you like, all of a sudden seems irritating. Nothing has changed except how this technology is performing. It's gone to a lower level of performance. Okay? So it is super important for us to understand how to maintain this inner technology in a state of peak performance. And much of the seminar this week is really about giving you the tools to put this technology into a state of peak performance. And if you understand that, if you master that, you show up in life as a better human being. It is no more complex than that. So that puts us in a very difficult situation in today's world because all of these outer technologies are constantly asking for attention. We get distracted with the rings, with the pings, with the tweets coming in, and we got to look at it, another message comes. It just fragments our attention, and we feel very tired and sometimes overwhelmed with this because the modern day living is challenging us to respond to how these technologies are demanding our attention. And that puts us in a paradoxical situation because this technology, our brain, our body, in order to move to a state of peak performance, needs its periods of quiet. It needs to occasionally, I call, unplug from the internet and plug into our inner net. And those are two opposite things. So how do you do it? How do you live in the modern world where you actually effectively use these kind of technologies, do the things you need to, and still find the time, the spaciousness for this technology to operate in the way it best functions? That is a challenge most of the world does not know. Everybody's struggling, including me. In my case, it is worse because I walked into the lion's den when I choose a job at Google. And not only did I walk into the lion's den, I'm poking the lion in the eye because every day I get 300 mails and everyone wants 24/7. You fly all over the world. It is very demanding. And if you notice what Nath said yesterday during the evening bhajan, he said when we do the meditation or when we calm down a little bit between two songs, there is something we feel shifting inside because we are just giving enough time for this technology to get grounded. If you did yoga this morning, you felt it. This is why we are having this seminar in this beautiful open space as opposed to the middle of Munich or Frankfurt where all of the noise and the dust and the traffic and all of that would have just made you go crazy. We need, as humans, we need that spaciousness. But in modern day living, that is becoming increasingly challenging. So how do we do it becomes the primary question. And in the next 20 minutes or so, I want to give you 5 rituals by which I have made it somehow work in my life. It is not perfect. I'm still experimenting with my life. But I want to share with you 5 rituals of how I live and work in Google in the midst of Silicon Valley, dealing with all of these technologies, and still give myself the time for this inner technology to go into a state of peak performance. Okay? You ready? The first ritual that works very well for me, if you go to the next slide, It's a simple concept. Focus on the essential. Focus on the essential. Things that are more important should not be at the mercy of things that are less important. Things that are more important should not be at the mercy of things that are less important. And the idea behind that is we all should know what are the most important things for our life. I call them the essentials. Because if you know that, you say yes to a few essentials and say no to everything else that are distractions. So how many essentials you need? I would say start with 1, or maybe 3, or at most 5. And by the end of the session today, or worse, by the end of the day, I'm going to ask you to write down, if you already don't know, what are the 3 to 5 most important things for you in your life? What are your highest priorities? And once you know those, and if you're not clear, you must come up with that. Because once you know those, you can say yes to a few things that serve those highest priorities, and then say no to a lot of things that are distracting you. The second ritual that really helps you, once you know what your essentials are, the second ritual, if you go one more, is to do one thing at a time. Now you're sitting there thinking, what? This is the big advice this guy from Google is giving me? Do everyone tell you? So many people have told you. Your parents told you this. Your grandma told you this. Do one thing at a time. We all know this, but the reason I am emphasizing on this is this. Over time, I figured out that this inner technology is extremely good if you ask it to focus on one thing. You make it do 6 things at the same time, it completely falls apart. It's not able to perform. And the reason I'm repeating is somehow we all now live in a way we believe that we will be the first generation in human history to multitask between 6 different things and do it successfully. And if you look day to day how we behave, we have what I suffer from continuous partial attention. We have a little bit of attention on maybe a little bit of project we're doing, and part of our attention is on a YouTube video that's playing. We've got 3 chat windows open, and suddenly a message pops up for an Instagram response, and we are constantly fragmenting. How many of you operate that way most of the time? Be honest, okay? Yeah, this has just become a normal life. We somehow believe that we will be the first generation in human history that will live this way and get through successfully. But it comes at a certain price. If you look at any example of peak performance among humanity, virtuoso musicians, sports stars who are at a peak level, Michael Phelps, Usain Bolt, you'll find that they're singularly focused on one thing, which is why no virtuoso violinist will be practicing on the violin while still watching something on YouTube and on TV. But yet, in our life, we think that we can get by. So while I was flying here, I was at the airport, and I noticed this young woman in front of me who was inching her way to the security line, and she was pushing her bags with her leg. And that's because she was on the phone speaking, and she was also having a sandwich. So this is how she was getting up the security line. And just then the caller, he needed a piece of information, and she said, "Hold on a second, I'll get it for you." And she cradled the phone, pulled her tablet out from bag, and started with one thumb finding the information. And by this time she had gotten up to the security officer, and he said, "Your boarding pass and driver's license, please." So she set it down, retrieved those things, gave it to him, and then took the tablet back and then continued having a sandwich, speaking on the phone, looking up the information while still inching forward. At this point, she was doing 5 things at the same time. And I looked and said, how did we get here as a civilization? How have we survived as a human species? So here the simple advice is do one thing at a time. So my ask for you is this. You don't have to change anything in your life, but the next time you are trying to do 6 different things, just notice, just be aware. That's all I'm asking you to do. Just be aware that I'm trying to do 3 things at the same time. And then if you want to take it one more level further, ask yourself a simple question. Are all those 3 things at the same level of importance? Or is one slightly lower importance, I can put it aside and focus on 2 things or focus on one thing. Just do it as a thought experiment. Pick the task and see if you can just do that one task uninterrupted for 23 minutes. Meaning turn your mail off, turn your phone off, so no distraction, shut the door, turn the music off, turn the TV off, turn the YouTube channel off. Just focus on that one task for 23 minutes, because that's how long the brain For most people, can't stay focused on one attention before you run out of energy. Just do it as an experiment for a few days and see if you perform the task much faster at a higher quality. You might come back and say, no difference, I don't care, I'm not. That's fine. Try it, that's all I'm going to ask you, to make this a bit of a daily habit. Moving on, the third ritual, one more slide, is this concept of, I'm going to ask you to commit to 1 minute every day of just connecting with your inner technologies. How many minutes are there in a day? Who's quit at math? Well, nobody knows the number. That's interesting, even though this is an important... Correct, exactly. And what's your name? Antonis. And did you just calculate it or you knew the number? Oh, you knew before. 1,440 minutes of this very important resource. And it is one resource where there is equality. Everybody gets 1,440 minutes, no matter where in the world you are, what your economic situation is. The choice is ours, how we use the 1,440 minutes. So my ask here is, of the 1,440 minutes, 1 minute, just 1 minute, make it important to connect to your inner technologies, because this is such an important piece of how your life operates, okay? Whatever that means to you in terms of nurturing the inner technology, I'm not going to prescribe saying do a particular method. It might be walking in the nature, it might be playing your guitar, it might be sipping a cup of tea, it might be just sitting quietly doing nothing, it might be reading poetry, whatever it is, 1 minute a day. For me personally, it is yoga and meditation. And I have this commitment that I will do at least 1 minute of yoga, 1 minute of meditation every single day. Now, this should strike you as the most ridiculous idea that you ever heard. I mean, what's the point doing 1 minute of yoga? What can you get out of it? 2 sun salutations? But here's where I arrived at this wisdom. So when I was 19 years old, I went and stayed in a yoga ashram in southern India in Kerala. And I became a yoga teacher then. It was such a beautiful time in my life, because for the first time in my life, I had consistency. Every day I would get up at 5:30, as you're expected to, 7 days a week. Sit for meditation at 6:30 start chanting bhajans. Then there would be a dharma lecture, then 2 hours of yoga practice, then breakfast, and then you had to do karma yoga service in the ashram. So this routine would continue all the way till 8, 9, 10 at night. And if you ever lived in an ashram, you're aware of this. So it gave me a rhythm. And by month, something had changed. My mind and body was functioning at such a level of joy and energy and peak performance. It was magical. So when I left the ashram to go back to my college, I made a resolution. I said, this is so beautiful that I am going to commit myself to 1 hour of yoga, 30 minutes of meditation every single day. That was my commitment. And I left the ashram, 19 years old, with that commitment. And I honored that commitment for an amazing 3 days. And I arrived at Google, and I was still struggling with it. If I was in a retreat center, I would do it. Otherwise, I was not able to hold on to it. And that's when I spoke to my friend Meng, who's a Googler. And Meng, who's got a lot more wisdom than I am, he's the author of a book called Search Inside Yourself. It's a bestseller. He's one of the original engineers at Google, employee number 106. He used to work on search. So Meng told me, he said, Gopi, why don't you start with 1 breath? Because even if you're trying to meditate for a full hour, it's 600 breaths strung together. You have to get past 1 breath before you go to the 2nd breath and the 3rd. And I thought this was such profound wisdom. And since I'm a compulsive, neurotic overachiever, I said, I can do much better than that. I'm going to do a whole minute. And that's how I started with this commitment of I'll do 1 minute of yoga, 1 minute of meditation every single day. It's less time than it takes to brush your teeth. And as soon as I made that commitment, something shifted. Because there is not one single day when I can say I don't have a minute. I mean, what's the point in living if out of 1,440 minutes you can take 1 minute for yourself, for nurturing this most important technology? So it became easy. I would get up in the morning, brush my teeth, do a minute of yoga, 2 sun salutation, a minute of meditation. So a week went by, 2 weeks went by, and for the first time, I looked back in my life and I could say, I have done yoga and meditation every single day. Because it is. So the ask here is find the lowest possible threshold for you that you cannot say no to, and commit to it every single day for whatever it is that will help you connect with your inner technologies. You choose that. But find the lowest threshold, if it's 1 minute or 5 minutes, and say, I'm going to do this every single day. It's non-negotiable. But something else happened that I was not prepared for that was even more dramatic. So on many days, I would sit for 1 minute of meditation on the floor, on the cushion. A minute would pass by, and then I'd feel so wonderful, so sweet, that my body would say, my mind would say, this is so amazing. What else is out there that you're rushing off to beyond this 1 minute? Stay. So I would stay for the second minute because it was one wonderful feeling, and I felt nothing is more important. And the third minute, and very soon, getting to the 5 minute, 10 minute, 15 minute mark became so easy. So that is the third ritual. Find the lowest threshold to connect with something that allows you to ground to these inner technologies. Fourth ritual, we go one more slide, is to make appointments in your calendar at least once a week to connect to your internet, a longer appointment. So other people seem to control my life more than myself because of the access to my time through my calendar. And I saw that there was so much integrity if something showed up on my calendar, I was doing it. So I came up with this idea, why don't I make appointments, instead of letting other people put appointments on my calendar, maybe I should make appointments with myself. And I started booking appointments with myself. And that is really the ask here. So if there is something that you discovered works well for you, something you learned during this week that really grounds you, that allows you to nurture, make an appointment with yourself. Okay? You invite yourself to spend half an hour, 1 hour to do that activity on a regular basis. So and when I say put something on a calendar, it has to be the same day of the week, the same time. So it might be Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, I'm going to go for a walk with my dog along the lake, and I'm going to do it every Saturday at 10 o'clock. It is a non-negotiable commitment in your calendar. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. So, and you hold yourself accountable. So start with one. Just one thing on the calendar for an hour every week that is sacred, that you don't let anybody else mess around with. And then make sure you do it religiously week after week, because that gives you that integrity and discipline. So during the exercise, I'm going to make you to think of what will be that one activity which is you, and you will put it on your calendar, on your phone, or when you get back to your room if you have access to a laptop. In my case, I have 2 or 3 every week that I consistently try to hold on to. One of them is that every Monday I teach yoga on the Google campus at 5:30 in the evening. And if ever you are in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, you're welcome to join my class. It is every Monday, 5:30. It's a yoga class for the Googlers that I founded called Yoglers. And I've been running the class for 10 years. That's how long I worked at Google. In my 10 years, I've never missed my class even once. That is my commitment. 10 years, every Monday, I've always taught. Unless I'm traveling and I'm physically not there, in which case, I make sure one of my colleagues will lead the class, and I teach where I go. So I've taught in the Buenos Aires office, I've taught in the Tokyo office, I've taught in the Shanghai office, because I want to keep that commitment sacred. Meanwhile, back in Mountain View, the class is still going on, somebody else is leading, so the Google community can always expect that one commitment from me. Monday, 5:30, you can show up. The yoga class in Charleston Park always happen at 10 years. So find that one thing you're going to make an appointment that is non-negotiable, have the highest degree of integrity. It's between you, look in the mirror, and make a commitment, hold yourself accountable. The fifth ritual I'm going to talk about, the final one, is a notion called friend yourself. We have 600 friends on Facebook. We have 1,000 followers on Twitter. We have people whose pictures we are looking at Instagram and Snapchat. All of that is well and good. Something as human beings we never had access to. If you look at your grandparents, they probably had 20, 40, 50 connections, but we have thousands, which is fantastic. These technologies allow us. But the most important relationship, who's the person who said relationships? Was you, right? Yeah, you. What's your name? Thomas, right? So going back to the point, Thomas said that is more important than these outer technologies. The most important relationship that we will all have is the one with ourself. Okay? This is, other friends come and go. This friend you have to stay with, whether you like your hair color or body type or the neurosis or the crazy jokes that you say in your head. You have to stay with this friend, no choice. And therefore, we might as well friend ourselves first before we think of all the other friendships out there. How do we do that? On a daily basis, my ask here is listen to the tweet from your heartbeat. Listen to the chat request from your brain. Pay attention to the status update from your body because it's trying to communicate something to you, and if you ignore it, you pay a price. So this is my fifth ritual on a daily basis to make sure I am deepening the relationship with myself. That because I am my own best friend, I'm paying attention to what my body needs, what my brain is saying, what my heart is saying, and responding to that. Just tiny snippets of time, maybe when you wake up, maybe when you go to sleep, maybe in between when you're transiting from one place to another. So if you go one more slide, these are 5 rituals that I talked about. Now my goal here is I'm not going to ask you to adopt the same. My ask here is find the few rituals that work for you and make it daily or weekly habits. So if you go one more slide, back, I think, where the fullest, yeah. So these are 5. You may want to adopt the same 5, come up with your own 5, I don't care. More importantly, I'm asking you to prioritize taking care of this inner technology. Find the ritualistic habits, find the habits that will actually help you connect with the inner technology and make them regular daily or weekly rituals. That is your best defense to move your body into a state of peak performance. The ultimate goal is constantly keep experimenting with your body and mind. Ask yourself what allows you to perform it at a higher level. Everything from the food you eat, to the type of exercise you do, to the type of books and media you consume, to the people you hang out with. You find out what is best for you. I don't want to prescribe it. But then ritualize it, make it a daily habit. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you.